This weekend in college football, it was particularly interesting. There were some really good performances, and then there were just some god awful performances, and we're here to go over that today. Welcome to the Stock Report and what's crack-a-lackin'. It's your boy Broshmo, just in case you did not know. So go ahead, become a bro and subscribe. Leave this video a thumbs up if you enjoy the content as always. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I love having that nice, beautiful football discourse with you all. Hopefully 7-round mock draft tomorrow, so be on the look for that. Takes a lot of work, so at the latest probably Wednesday, but I'm shooting for tomorrow. Now, I only cover 10 guys on this list, and I talk about guys here and there, so it's probably like 15 to 20 guys I talk about in these videos, but let me know who you think should have been discussed in the comment section below. But let's go ahead and start off with the game we watched, Penn State versus Ohio State. Parker Washington. I just got off from doing my wide receiver ranking saying I think this guy could be a top 50 guy. And then he proceeded to come out and prove, yeah, I'm a top 50 guy. Listen, I get this guy does a lot of his work out of the slot, but he's built like a running back, 5'10", 215. You saw him on the touchdown pass where he literally just ate the contact from two defenders and then went on to score. Relatively easy. But it's what this guy does as a pass catcher at the catch point. He high points the football so well. Such good hands and strong hands. And he really is. He goes from pass catcher to ball carrier, like power back, just like that, man. He's very shifty after the catch. Just had a phenomenal performance in that Penn State game, or that Ohio State game. A big reason why they stayed in it for so long. He was just unstoppable. Man, what a performance by Parker Washington. Now, the teams are going to probably be hung up on he might only be a slot guy, which I think it's okay. It's A-okay. I think you get in the second round and you start to think, man, you know what? I don't mind taking this cat. Because he's basically a running back, man. Honestly, you could line this guy up in the backfield if you want to. He has that type of contact balance. Super good. Super impressive performance from him. Now let's move over to Ohio State's side of the football. Talk about Kade Stover. Finally checked him out for you guys. I saw him in the comments a few times here and there. And then watching the game, golly, probably had one of the funnest receptions that wasn't from Marvin Harrison for Ohio State. On the TD, he caught it in open space and he managed to eat not one, not two, but three, count them, three, leg tackles on his way to the end zone. Now, if you're not familiar with Kade Stover, let's go ahead. Let's talk a little background with Mr. Stover here. Here we go. Former 4-star recruit from the 2019 class. He played running back, linebacker, and defensive line in high school. He also is the team's all-time leading scorer in basketball, which I just found is kind of wild. This is the coolest thing. Now, he's a farm boy, but he credits former Buckeye teammate Jonathan Cooper as who he modeled himself after to become a leader for Ohio State. So that's really cool. It's a cool shout out to now Denver Bronco Jonathan Cooper. But yeah, he initially came in as a defensive end for Ohio State and then made the move to tight end after his freshman season, and saw limited play. This is really the first time he's seen play, and it's this season, and he's actually having a pretty solid year. Now, straight up, this dude, former defensive lineman, it's not surprising that physicality is the first thing that comes to mind when you watch this cat play, because this dude brings that physical and violent nature from playing on the defensive line. As a run blocker, this guy's a very good run blocker, and he has ideal size. He has the ideal build for the position. He shows very sure hands. I don't think he has a drop through his career. To be fair, didn't play much in 2020, 2021, but he's playing phenomenal this year. Nice sturdy build, just hard to bring down. Again, go to the touchdown catch, which he shook off not one, not 2, but 3 leg tackles on his way to the end zone. He's a good athlete, and he's shown good progression. I would say this definitely, he looks more complete as a tight end this year than the few instances we saw him last season. Also, vocal leader, that is reported by teammates and coaching staff that he's a vocal leader on this offense, and you love to see it. However, dude is still relatively new to the position, isn't a high-end athlete for the position, especially when you look at him laterally, and doesn't consistently separate on one-on-ones. This is a guy that's really going to be looking for the soft spot in coverage and taking advantage from there. It's just hard to bring down. That's why I kind of view him probably still in that day 3 area, but having a good year. And we can let's talk about this game for a little bit, because overall, the Penn State defense looked very good throughout this game until the end, when their offense just kept turning the ball over. Not eligible this year for Ohio State. JT, I'm going to not mess up his last name, but dude's probably going to be like a top 10 pick along with Marvin Harrison in the 2024 draft. Dude had a bonkers game where he had, a forced fumble, 2 sacks, 2 interceptions, 1 return for a touchdown. It was a nutty game. It was a career-defining game for him. Haven't looked into Tommy Eichenberg just yet, but based on what we saw, I like his length. He moves well. He made plays on the ball and coverage, so I like that. But guy, again, if I don't have my child this week, then I will get to him this week in terms of getting an evaluation for him. But yeah, dude, that offense for Penn State just kept putting their defense in bad predicaments. But honestly, I was very impressed for the most part of what guys like Joey Porter and was it Jair Brown? Oh my gosh, dude. Can't think of his Jair Brown. There we go. The safety. Especially in run support. That guy was phenomenal. This dude is legit Jaquan Brisker. Just might not be as athletic, or at least he won't test out. Brisker tests out better than expected. I don't expect that for Brown. Looking at Olu Fashanyu, the only time that anybody was getting pressure on the defensive line for Ohio State, it was opposite. It was that right tackle. They fed on that poor right tackle for Penn State. But Fashanyu had a solid game. So overall, Stroud, people are gonna beat up Stroud for being high on a few passes. I don't think it was bad. Honestly, Stroud, I thought looked fine. He did enough for them to win the football game. Never put it in harm's way for the most part. So overall, I came away thinking Stroud was all right. So let's just go ahead and talk about a quarterback that had a really bad week in Will freaking Levis. I'm not an I told you so guy, and I'm not going to be in this case either, because I still think Will Levis is a first round talent. I really do. And I'm pretty sure most of the draft community will too, because he's got an NFL arm. He's got an arm capable of making any NFL throw you want. This guy that operates in a pro-style offense with a lot of modern-day NFL passing concepts. This is a cat that has plus mobility. It's just not all together yet in terms of going through his progressions consistently and decision-making. We saw it in the game. 3 turnover-worthy plays, 3 interceptions. He had a balls game. Him and Kentucky did not show up for this Tennessee game. Quite frankly, they did not. That just seems to be the case. And I'm going to reiterate my point where I feel most comfortable with Will Levis is, again, you get to that top 15 to top 20 area. That's when I start to consider Will Levis, just because the quarterback position, things are a bit more overvalued. But I feel better about him as a late first. Again, you're taking a shot on what can be with Will Levis. You look at his play now, and it's you know what? Yeah, it's all mental for him. It really is. A reason why everybody and their mom, for the most part, is probably going to have Will Levis higher than Hendon Hooker, again, is because of the upside. You look at Hendon Hooker, he's going to be 25 by the time his NFL career begins. Will Levis will be, I believe, 24. And it's like, what's the difference? They're both older prospects. And it comes down to the physical tools. It really does. Will Levis, if Hendon Hooker had the arm talent of Will Levis, he would be a top 5 pick. It's as simple as that. But he just doesn't. If Will Levis honestly had the I guess the confidence and the confidence and just the vision, the know-how, the comfortability in the offense of a Hendon Hooker, then Will Levis would easily be this top 5, top 3 pick. But this is why I'm so just not in on him as that right now. But yeah, Will Levis, be better next time, I guess. And like I said, I'm not going to say I'm right about this guy. Again, we're a long ways from that. This guy still has let's at least let this guy play a couple of years on an NFL contract before we decide that. But again, this is just how I currently feel when it comes to Will Levis. Now let's keep this moving with Tyler Nubin out of Minnesota. I want to hit on a few prospects you probably aren't aware of, heard of, or at least know of too well. And Nubin is one I'm pretty confident at least a majority of y'all aren't aware of, because he's pretty darn solid, man. Had a really good week this week against who did Minnesota play? Was it Michigan State? Minnesota Golden Gophers football. Rutgers, that's right. I knew they shut out somebody. I just couldn't remember who it happened to be. But yeah, had a great week. 2 interceptions, only allowed a reception for 13 yards. Dude's got really good size. Former 4-star recruit out of the 2019 class. Played wide receiver, run back, defensive back in high school. As a freshman, he played in 12 games primarily on special teams. In the short and Big Ten season, he started in all 7 games. He's been a starter ever since. He was the bowl their bowl game from 2021's MVP. But this dude is literally, you look at his length. His length just forces guys to want to, quarterbacks, just to stay away from him, because it's really good. He keeps quarterbacks away from his side of the field, easily. He reads the quarterback's eyes exceptionally well. He explodes well when closing in on the ball, and if that length could get home, then it's gonna be a turnover. He's gonna make a splash play in coverage. He's good at disrupting the catch point. If you go look, 35.3% completion rate when targeted throughout his career. The dude flashes ball skills. He's just not targeted often, which you kind of like that from your safety, you know? He's also been an improved tackler in the open field over the past couple of seasons. He has that build that just wants to spear ball carriers. He brings a ton of experience on special teams. This guy, I think, is going to be one of these early to mid day 3 guys that are just going to instantly be a very good asset in the special teams department that has potential started upside. Now, he can be a bit slow to react and trust in his eyes. Really relies on that closing speed, that length, and honestly, the change of direction, it's not great. It's not extraordinary. It's not bad by any means. It's just meh, you know? But more times than not, this guy is making the correct read. He's just a solid player. Through and through, just a very solid player at the position. Honestly, kind of reminds me a bit of, who was it? Who was the cat out of Baylor last year? That played safety, not the slot, not the I can't even think of his name now off the top of my head. JT Woods. It was right. Okay, JT Woods. He reminds me a bit of JT Woods. There we go. Wow, took forever. Bet you've already skipped past this part. All right, on to the next cat. I got Jonah Tavai out of San Diego State. Another guy you might not know of, but you really should. He leads all of college football in pressures. He's been phenomenal for the defense of the Aztecs. There we go. If you go back, it's not like it's 1 year production either. You go back to the following year, and that's back when they had was it Cameron Thomas? He had 61 pressures, 10 sacks last season. Like, what? Like, yeah, this guy's produced in back-to-back years. Let me pull him up here real quick. Here we go. He was actually a JUCO transfer from the 2019 class, so he might be around that 23 to 24 area. He went to El Camino College before transferring to San Diego State. He was also a thrower in track and field, and dude's been legit, man. He looks like a bowling ball on the field a bit because he's got that low center of gravity at 6 foot, but he plays with good natural leverage. He plays fast and twitched up. Legit. Like, his hands are both quick and they are strong. Probably comes from the track background where he's a thrower, a shata puta. Now, when chopping down, like, blockers' arms, just looks violent. Everything this guy does, it's twitched up and violent. Really is. He grinds out reps and has the lateral movement to play sideline to sideline along the line. He has a lot of prowess as a pass rusher and plays very well against the run. The things that are going to be hiccups when it comes to Tavai are the lack of physical traits, mainly length. He's probably going to struggle to disengage against NFL blockers at the NFL level. He will at times let blockers ride him past the play, and I like to see him use those hands and suddenness more often to get back to the ball, or at least the ball carrier. Now, he will play with his head down sometimes and kind of lose what's going on in the backfield, but again, plays with great leverage. You just don't see a ton of power from his game. It's more explosive power than consistent power throughout the rep. Now, has been mowed down by interior players in the run game, something to note. But overall, man, again, you kind of look at this guy, you look at the production, coming off a week where he had 10 pressures, 3 sacks, and you're like, maybe that early to mid day 3 area, a guy that is probably going to go to one of the all-star bowls and really, really make a name for himself just because, again, high motor, twitched up, shows a lot of relentlessness. Like, teams are really, really going to like that. On to the next cat, and this is a guy that Alex from Hail Mary Sports has been telling me to check out too. It's Laiatu Latu out of UCLA. And this cat has an interesting story, and let's go over that first before we get into just the crazy production he's put out this season. But where are you, my friend, here? Because then you'll kind of know why, maybe, like, despite his production this season and what's been put on tape, why teams might steer away from him. So, former 4-star recruit from the 2019 class where he played linebacker and tight end. Saw some action his freshman season for the Huskies. He initially played for Washington. But unfortunately, going into the 2020 season, right before the season, he suffered a neck injury that ended the season for him. Now, he took a year to come back, and he was cleared by the guy that looked at and cleared Peyton Manning back in the day. His name's Dr. Robert Watkins. It was the guy that treated Peyton Manning for a similar neck injury. Cleared him to play for the 2021 season. However, Washington's doctors did not. They were like, we don't want to risk putting you back on the field. So he ended up serving the rest of that whole season as an assistant on the sideline. And then at the end of the year, he was like, I really want to play football. Put his name in the transfer portal and ended up following the guy who was actually his position coach at Washington, who moved to UCLA. He followed him to UCLA. And this cat's been phenomenal. He hasn't been a starter. Like, that's the Murphy brothers. Those guys are starting, but this guy comes in typically on passing downs. If you look at it, like, it's basically like 2.5 to 1 in terms of how often, when is he on the field. He is typically always on the field for passing downs or passing situations. He is their designated pass rush only type of guy. And this dude's so light on his feet, shows incredible burst, whether it's on a stunt or if it's him just bending the edge. I love the closing speed on ball carries. It's really remarkable. I love the relentlessness during his rep. He displays a very good approach to rushing the passer and just doesn't allow himself to be stonewalled, I guess, for too long, as he does show very quick and very active hands as a pass rusher. Doesn't provide overwhelming strength there, but he's not a guy that I think could get bulldozed in the run game consistently unless it's like coming downhill, as he plays sideline to sideline pretty darn well. The simple question is that neck injury. You're coming. Okay, first off, small sample size. It's really just this season where he's playing in a rotation role, but it's the neck until that gets checked out of the combine, because you got one doctor who cleared him and then a team doctors who did. That's going to be the question. That won't be answered till the combine. So can't really. Teams are either going to take him off their board because of it, or they're going to be willing to take a shot on him somewhere on day 3. Because ultimately, I think that's where he lands, just because the neck, it's very significant. You know, it's a very significant part of your body to injure. Now, when it comes to his playing, again, this is a guy that's kind of been a designated pass rush only. Doesn't mean he's got awful in the run play or in the run game, because I think he can play the run particularly well. It's just that lack of strength, I would say. He doesn't really explode power, you know? He's more of a finesse guy, and you also look, and he does occasionally slip off of tackles. I think this year he has a 22% missed tackle rate. But a cat that has this interesting story. He does pop off immediately when you watch him on tape. I can see why guys like Alex from Hail Mary Sports was like, yo, you gotta check this guy out. You gotta check this guy out. But again, and ultimately, like, big thing for him is gonna be that neck. It really, really is. And then this is just stock down, because okay, first off, Ventrell Miller. He's stock down for me this week. I did my linebacker rankings. Somebody was like, where's Ventrell Miller? I was like, Ventrell Miller's more of this, like, mid to late day 3 guy, you know? And for this very reason, like, the missed tackles have been an issue for the most part. Like, he cleaned it up in 2022. Obviously, the injury in 2021 couldn't see him. But you go look at 2019, missed tackles aplenty. And then this year, the past 2 games, he has 9 missed tackles. 9. That's ridiculous. It really is when it comes, like, and you look at the size, it's not ideal for the position either. If you're not familiar with Ventrell Miller, he's been around Florida for a while. He's a cat that I was probably talking about for the 2021 NFL, draft class. But he ended up deciding to return. Then 2021, torn tendon in his bicep cost him the season. Used the extra year from the Rona to go ahead and return. So we're already talking about a guy who's an older prospect in this class. And he just lacks length. He lacks strength. Like, he struggles to disengage from blocks. And it just doesn't... The splash plays in coverage are few and far between. He only has 1 pass breakup this year. He's allowing a completion rate of 68.7%, which, fun fact, that's the worst in his career. So this season, in terms of what is he doing against the pass, it's probably the worst that we've seen it. Like, honestly, like, this is a cat that his best year came in 2019. You know? It's like, the guy we're watching now, it's like, yeah, he's fine. He's a fine prospect, but not a guy, like, with a lot of upside. Not a guy that's probably going to go probably late day 3 or maybe be this priority UDFA. That's kind of what I think of and what I see when it comes to Ventrell Miller. But, I mean, he brings good experience. Like, and to be fair, this is kind of a regression when it comes to him as a tackler, because he was really good last year. Then this year, like, he started the year off strong, but it's like, as we get more and more and more into SEC play, like, he's just slipping off better playmakers, you know? So I felt like I really had to bring up Ventrell Miller this week after I saw his name pop up a couple of times in my comment section, and I was just like, well, let's put this to rest real quick. All right, next on the list, Broderick Jones. Phenomenal game against Florida. And he was facing a Florida team that has some NFL talent along that defensive line. And he was great. He was a great run blocker, allowed no pressures in pass protection. The dude was phenomenal. I don't know why we don't talk enough about this cat. Like, I think he should be, if we're talking about, like, he's easily I think a top 20 prospect. It's like, is he good enough to be top 10? That seems to be the question. I think we need to talk about him as such. Like, people are putting Fashanu ahead of him, which is fine. Fashanu's having a great year, and there's a lot of upside with him. But, like, we could really say a lot of the same things about Broderick Jones. And I don't know why we aren't. I really don't. Like, this guy's got a thick frame, plays like he wants to hit somebody. He honestly, like, he's been so good. He's so good at resetting. He plays with a lot of power. He's good at resetting his anchor when he needs to. He sinks low, does a good job of keeping rushers in front of him, whether it's in the run game or in pass protection. And the footwork is better this year with him. Not saying it's great or it's good, but it's improved. I'll say that. So it's like, I don't know why we ain't talking more about, like, Broderick Jones. And I want to talk about this game one more time. For Jalen Carter was phenomenal. He had 11 pass rush snaps, 4 pressures. Guy was phenomenal in the run game, and people are getting out of hand. I feel like if you're putting any of the defensive interiors ahead of Jalen Carter in this draft, you're either just trying to show off another name, you're trying to be different, because it's not. He's the top 4 prospect in this class. Like, dude's so good. I know he's been beat up this year, but this dude's a blue chip prospect. Like, calm freaking down. Jalen Carter's a monster, dude. Dude's a monster. All right. Next on the list, Rashee Rice. I feel like I've been talking about him a lot, but he had a banger game this week against... Who did Rice go against this week? I'm trying to think. Cincinnati had Central Florida. Oh my gosh, it's like on the tip of my tongue. I know it's there. Give me a sec. Here, I'm just gonna look this up. Why can't I think? Who did they have this week? Tulsa. I was gonna say Tulsa. But then I was like, oh man, am I getting confused with UAB again? Because I literally just did that in the video earlier today. I confused Tulsa and UAB. Those teams with freaking gold, I swear. Regardless, he went off. He had a great week. 2 touchdowns, 9 receptions, 180 yards. That was actually the most yards this week in college football. Currently, he's tied for 27th in the country in forced missed tackles, which he has 11. And if you look at a guy like, okay, we talked about Parker Washington earlier in this video. Parker Washington's tied for 11th in forced missed tackles at the receiver position. He has 14, so they're separated by 3. You hear 11 and 27, it's really not that big of a difference when you really look at it. But Rice is just nice, dude. He's a competitor. Dude's a competitor out there. There's no quit in him. He's a lot faster than people give him credit for. I like the length. I love the skills after the catch. I love what he does as a route runner. Like, I'm just a huge fan of Rashee Rice. If you didn't think he was a top 75 guy before, you definitely should now. Like, this receiving class, it's starting to look better, mainly in the day 2 department. Day 1, it's really, you're looking at 2 guys inside the top 20, maybe, at this point. And then everyone else are like kind of maybe fringe first. You know, it's not the receiving classes of years past, but like when you get to day 2, it's like there's a lot more excitement about it. Even early day 3, there's a lot of excitement about a guy like Jacob Cohen, who, yeah, he's probably a slot only guy, but golly, what he can do after the catch is incredible. He's 9th in forced miss tackles. And I talked about, like, oh, even people might want to joke about the top, like Quentin Johnston is the top receiver in this class. the dude's ninth in forced miss, tied for ninth with Cohen in forced missed tackles this year. He's got X wide receiver size. Dude's just so hard to bring down. But like, really, you get in the later rounds and like you're looking at guys like Keaton Thompson, the Virginia guy, who's like second in forced missed tackles, and he's a guy that's very raw and new to the receiver position, just playing it for the last couple of years there at Virginia. But he's just so tough to bring down and even put a hand on. You got him. You got Dante Cephas, who I talked about earlier this year out of Kent State. Like there's interesting guys in this class. Don't sleep on this wide receiver class. It's not bad. It's just not top heavy like it has been in years past. And then finally, I want to talk about Eric Gray on this list. Eric Gray, a lot of running backs had actually a really good week. We really could have talked about like Chase Brown, which I know a lot of y'all want to hear me talk about Chase Brown, which I talked about him at the beginning of the year. Maybe I'll come back to him and why he's not right now a top 10 back, in my opinion. Like, he's just a do-good everything back. Just the upside's not like, wow, for me. But maybe I'll talk about him later this week. We'll see. But, like, dude, Charbonnet had a phenomenal week again. Just didn't want to talk about him, like, back-to-back weeks. Blake Corum, he led college football in forced missed tackles this past week. Dude went off against Michigan State. Like, running backs, like, have been really, really good this season. But Eric Gray, he's been good this year as well. Going off against a pretty good Iowa State defense there. Went off for 110 yards or 101 yards on 20 carries. He had a tutty, and mainly I brought him up here because I want to talk about why he just missed my top 10 running backs. If you haven't checked out, I did my mid-season prospect rankings. You can go ahead, take a look at the run back video. But Eric Gray really just missed the cut for me, and it's really based on some, I guess, rumors, I guess you would say. And to be fair, it's not like anything bad, you know. But from the coaching staff, like some of the guys, like coaches firmly believe, like, yeah, he's gonna be playing on Sundays, but when it comes to what he brings, he's not a high end athlete, at least in terms of like the speed. Like the 40 time might not be great when it comes to Eric Gray, which really shocks me because when I watch this guy on the field, he's such a smooth athlete, has some of the sharpest cuts. Like, this dude could cut on a dime. And like, I like the balance when he has to take contact, shows quick feet, very good footwork, good stop start ability, but apparently he won't test out that well. So I was a little shocked. So I went back, watched some of him, and it's like, yeah, it's not like elite, but I feel like he's still plus for the running back position. So I don't know, man. Maybe he tests out. Maybe will this be a case where, man, the film doesn't match or at least the numbers don't match the tape. So what's going on here? And typically you lean on tape at that point anyway. Like if a dude's a baller. You know, you don't want to make numbers everything. But I just found that interesting. Why I kind of like, I want to reel back on Eric Gray, but not too much. Like, the dude's still like a guy I would consider late day 2, early day 3. Someone I did mention, I really wanted to talk about him because I think everyone and their mom's sleeping on him, is Trey Benson. Don't have an overlay for him or anything, but like, dude is, I think, easily Florida State's best running back. Guy's phenomenal. Also, Deuce Vaughn had a money-making day. Like, I think maybe he gets pushed to day 3 just because of his size. I think the NFL is going to crap on his size. Kenny McIntosh, phenomenal day. Again, like, for a guy that doesn't get to, that works in a committee that's like 4 running backs deep, just had another phenomenal day where I think he's just proven, hey, you know, if I would get a bigger workload, we'd be talking about me maybe in this like top 5 running back area, top 3. I really do firmly believe that. So It's just kind of a shame, but I feel like I've been talking long enough. Let me know who you think should have been on the list. That's it for the video. Go ahead, do the YouTube thing. As always, until next time, you be easy, my friends. Later.